What if the version of you've been chasing is actually the one you've been trying to return to all along? The one before the noise, before the burnout, before you started shrinking to fit a life that never really fit you. This isn't about starting over, it's about returning. Returning to your soul, returning to your truth, the version of you that has always been meant to be. Each week, we're going to offer up real stories, hard-earned wisdom, and practical tools from powerful returns to help you reconnect with who you are and why you're here. I'm your host, Bryan White, and this is The Return Project. Welcome back to another episode of The Return Project. I'm your host, Bryan White, and in this episode today, we get to sit down with Jacki Fleniken. She's here to tell us a story of living through a world of partying, alcoholism, and a dark spiral of where her life took her to how she transformed her life to the world she lives in today. So, Jacki, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Bryan. I'm very honored to be here today.
Jacki, I would love to basically just start this off right here with you taking the floor and sharing with everybody where you started from. Where did you find yourself and how did it all begin for you?
Well, there's so many different places I could start this with, but let me go back to, let's say, like the original time I started drinking was actually, it wasn't even my choice. And I was thinking about this the other day because my sisters were having a party and I was in 8th grade and they forced me to do half shots of Jack Daniels. And I believe it was because they didn't want me to tell on them. So if I was drinking, I couldn't say, hey, by the way, mom and dad, my sisters were having a party. And I watched them host all these parties when my parents would go out of town and they'd have beer everywhere. So I was programmed from a very young age that alcohol is supposed to be a part of our life. So as I got into high school, I'm not proud to say this, but in high school, we were big drinkers. I was an athlete. I played 3 sports. I was a field hockey player, a gymnast, and I was a jumper on the track team. But a lot of times on Saturdays when I would have to go to track meet invitationals, I was hungover because we drank the night before. So I was known as what we called the Brew Crew. It was a group of like 7 or 8 of us girls. And our drink of choice in high school was Old Milwaukee Pounders. And we had hats on the day we graduated that said OMPS. It was like we felt like we were so powerful. And when I look back on it, it's just because I was programmed through society, through my sisters, and through what I was, the environment I was around. So as I aged, I went to college, and I definitely would only drink on the weekends. I went to University of Alabama. It's a really big party school. And as I grew up, though, I did start to back away from alcohol. I got actually at one point in my 20s, I didn't drink at all, but in my 20s, I decided to take a part-time job in the restaurant business because I was married at the time. We were heavily in debt. We started a business. And I needed to bring in some money to bring down our credit card debt. And we took out a second mortgage on the house. And as I got in the restaurant business, I wouldn't eat when I went to work because it was a dinner shift. So I would get off work and I'd have a beer. And the beer turned into 2 beers to 3 beers. And my body got really adjusted to drinking every day. And that became my routine and my pattern. And then I became in the restaurant business. I was a bartender for 12 years. So I not only served it and watched the patterns of people constantly coming in to get their daily fix of alcohol, I too became what I call seduced by alcohol and thinking I needed it. And I've learned so much in the last 2.5 years about why I became so addicted to it, why any of us become so addicted to it. But the problem was I was drinking on average maybe 8, 9, 10 beers, but then I fell into a really bad depression in 2021. I had left the restaurant business and I decided to change careers. And I reached out to a girlfriend of mine who promised to come train me. And I spent 3 or 4 months. I was going to be in the insurance business. And because I've done sales, I've done all sorts of things. I used to sell radio advertising and newspaper advertising, and I've had different careers besides the restaurant business. And so I thought, here I am in my early 50s. This will be a good career change for me. And I trusted her, and she did not come back and train me. Instead, it was a whirlwind. It's a very long story, but it was a very abusive relationship with her. And I started drinking to numb my voices in my head. And I told myself how horrible I was. Who do you think you are? Thinking you could go back into sales and you're just a loser and all these. So I would just drink to numb the voices in my head. And as I spiraled, I was drinking on average 12 beers a day. And I would wake up, and it got to the point, Bryan, I started having these horrible hangovers. And so I noticed I was drinking earlier and earlier in the day. I was living off of my savings because I didn't have this person come and train me, and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. So I was drinking. I was drinking my life away. And then I finally, in July of 2022, I attended the celebration of life of a friend of mine who passed away from alcoholism. And I heard what ugly death it was for him to have to experience that. And we sat there in this 1 o'clock celebration of life at one of our local clubs, and we had beer on our table, drinking, celebrating this man, and all they talked about was all the stupid stuff he did while he was drinking. He had done so many amazing things. He had done things with our local United Way charity. He had done other things with his life, but that was the most prominent thing that people thought about. And I sat there that day and I remember thinking, oh my God, is that going to be me? Is that what people are going to remember me by? All the Michelob Ultras I could drink and the cigarettes I could smoke and all these things. So I started to really get this awareness of, I don't think I like the way my life is going. And I'm scared. I got scared and I decided, and I looked at it and reflected, Bryan, I went, holy crap, I'm drinking more beers in my feast than I did when I was in college. And I'm drinking 12 on average every day. Rotating beer distributors, thinking in my mind, because in Pennsylvania, we buy beer, typically buy them at a beer distributor, and you buy them in a 30 pack. So I remember at one point I was like, I'd rotate between my beer distributors because I didn't want them to know. So I got really smart one day and I went, I'll just buy 2 30 packs at a time. I won't have to go as much. I'm still going every 5 days, but I didn't have to go every 3 days. I was going every 5 to 6 days to get beer. And as the beer was flowing, so were the cigarettes. So, I mean, I was just this hot walking mess, and I lost touch with who I was because I was handcuffed to alcohol. I was alcohol's, and guys, I'm going to say a word right now, but I was alcohol's bitch. I was so controlled by how much beer I had in my beer fridge. It's such an awful thing to be so handcuffed to a substance that you don't understand why you can't walk away from it. I'd wake up and say, I'm not drinking today, but by 3 or 4 o'clock, I'm drinking. And it was this whole thing of, what is my life going to look like if I don't change this habit? And I have 4 grown children, none of whom have blessed me with grandchildren yet. But I started thinking, will my future grandchildren even, number one, get to know me? Will I be here long enough? Or 2, will my children let me babysit my grandkids if I can't get this drinking under control? I felt like I was in a really deep, dark a deep, dark hole. I mean, my depression was ridiculous. My anxiety was through the roof. And for me to be anxious and have that much of anxiety was foreign to me. I wasn't used to it. I'm a very outgoing social person. In high school, I was class flirt because I talked to everybody. I was the girl walked down the street, hey, and then I felt, and I didn't know who I was anymore. And it was awful. It was an awful feeling to walk into like a store, let's say like a Target or the grocery store. And I would be so anxious of seeing anybody because I didn't know who I was anymore. All I knew, I was Jacki who was addicted to Michelob Ultra. And that became my identity, and it was scary.
That is a powerful story and a very scary place to find yourself in. I would usually dive into the questions along the lines of, how did you not get crushed by these feelings of depression and the drinking? But I want to assume that you just masked every feeling you had with more drinking at that time.
Yeah, I did. It was one of those things of, I'm a pretty emotional person. Anybody who knows me real well knows, like, me, and I cry. I cry at commercials. I do, and I know that's part of my healing of who I am. That's always been who I am. But I know with the alcohol, yeah, it was one of those things just to really silence the voices in my head I was telling myself. And then I would get really drunk, and then I would bawl, I would cry. My dad died in January of 2021. Alzheimer's. I remember I would just sit in this back room and I'd put on music and I'd play all these songs that would remind me of my father, because, the last 7 years of his life were just horrible for him, having had Alzheimer's. So yeah, I went into this world that I didn't recognize myself. I would get up and look at myself in the mirror and I would think, who the hell is she? Who is this person looking back at me? So it became just horrible. Absolutely horrible.
Do you think that the drinking became, in that period, what you thought was your healing process? Where, as you said, you lost your dad, so you go turn on music and drink. And was that how you were thinking you were trying to heal?
I mean, that's a great question. I've never looked at it in that capacity, Bryan, but that probably was what I was doing, because it was like, instead of really healing, when alcohol is in control, you don't have any control. You think you do, but you don't. So I didn't really heal from my father's passing. I just cried a lot. If I would, I mean, this went on for months, months and months and months. And so it was like, I didn't allow myself to really have the right grieving process because I was just so addicted to alcohol. I honestly, I don't remember having really a whole lot of control because I would tell myself, I'm not drinking today, but I drank. Because what happens is it's so wired into the subconscious mind. So I've been able to do a lot of work on me to understand why my body was so addicted. It wasn't just my body here was addicted to it. It was wired into my subconscious mind. It was on autopilot.
Did you have any addiction to alcohol that ran in your family, or was this something that, like you said, it just kind of grew over the years?
Well, my father was a pretty big drinker. He was a Jack Daniels drinker. Really, his Jack Daniels drinking got a little bit more out of control when he retired because he was a very successful businessman. So he never, like, he had his limit. He knew one or two after he got off work, and that was it. But I watched what he did. And one of the things I did learn, and I want to tell your audience this, that I've learned through this whole journey of my transformation is there's not a genetic gene or there's not an addictive person or addictive gene when it comes to alcoholism. It's a learned behavior. It's a societal environmental behavior thing that you're watching. So it's like I remember whenever I was heavily drinking, I was like, well, this is what my dad did. I must be okay because this is what dad did. Because I looked up to my father. I respected my father. My uncle was the same way. His brother, they were big drinkers. So it was kind of an interesting question, but it's not, it was more, I was living in that world. Not just was it watching my father do it, but being a bartender, I saw it every day. I saw it every time I went into work, or if I went into where I worked on my days off, the same pattern of people every day going in, seeing that this substance creates this draw, this, hey, come in, you need this today, you need this today. So
Working in that environment and having a little bit of that from growing up, did it not make you want to not drink? How did you find that correlation then? And I find that very fascinating that instead of it turning you off drinking, you're seeing all these people drawing in and coming back. In my brain, I would think that's not something I would want to become them, but you still were going down that path, even watching it every day.
correct, because I was told it was from what I'd seen in society. Like when you watch a lot of these different shows, these movies, advertisements, they make drinking alcohol look like it's fun. Oh, you need this to go out and have fun. You need it for this. So I was in that world of believing that alcohol was okay for you. I never intended when I started drinking all those years ago, and then that I would be drinking 12 a day. I wanted to be able I had no idea that it could really happen that badly. I kind of visualized the person who had an alcohol problem was the person who was sitting on the street with their alcohol in a brown bag because they'd lost everything. Alcohol addiction does not discriminate. It doesn't matter what walk of life you are. It's just doing, it's doing the job that we're training it to do, which is help us get through days that we think we need it for. Does that make sense? It's not like you tell your brain, I'm exhausted or I need to relax. I'm going to drink a beer. So your subconscious goes, oh, this is what you do when you want to relax. So it automatically does it for you. That's kind of what I would learn through the process of seeing how it wasn't that I would see people get drunk when they were sitting at my bar. I was very careful to make sure because I had a lot of responsibility whenever somebody was sitting at my bar. But I remember thinking to myself, if somebody said, I don't drink, I'm like, what's wrong with you? What do you mean you don't drink? What do you mean you don't drink? Like it didn't register with me. I didn't understand it. Now I get it. Now I'm like, okay, now I understand because they paid attention. They probably paid attention. One, either they were raised in a household where the family, the mother and father didn't drink and nobody around them drank. Or the first time they drank, they had such a horrible experience. They went, I'm never doing that again. And instead, when I had that horrible experience, I just went, oh, this is what we do. This is how we do it. And you muddle through it, you throw up or whatever it might be, whatever you're going through. And you just feel like it's your rite of passage. This is what you do if you want to be in this club of I drink alcohol. So I was very brainwashed.
In the depths of your heaviest drinking, did you physically have any side effects? Did your body start to physically give you any signs that there might be a problem?
Yes. Yeah. And that's when I started getting really scared because I would notice that I thought I had irritable bowel syndrome and I call it alcohol bowel syndrome because everything changed. I thought that, and I know that's an awful place to go, but I want your people to know if they're listening to this, there are a lot of signs that your body's going to give to you. You just got to pay attention to them. Because once I stopped drinking, my bowel system's completely changed. I don't have IBS. I started noticing my heart rate. I would check my pulse multiple times a day. I could feel my heart racing because it affects your heart. There's so many different things in your body that alcohol affects. My skin, I would wake up and I thought I had rosacea. I might have a tiny bit of rosacea, but it was alcohol induced. My eyes were not as clear. I mean, those were some of the signs. Other than that, I mean, I didn't have like fatty liver or didn't have anything going on with my liver, but I just noticed a couple of these little things happening and I was like, whoa, is this related to the alcohol? And it was.
You said that you had been sitting at a friend of yours' funeral and you're all sitting there drinking, celebrating his life. Was that really the wake up moment that you said, I need to change something? Or what was really your big, deep, like, I need to make a change? I can't go on like this.
That was number one, was him. But then after this gentleman had died, he died, I think, in April, and we had to wait a couple months to do his celebration of life. I got a phone call from a friend of my, a friend of, there was a friend, my words, a friend of mine who also knew the gentleman who had passed. His best friend, somebody walked over to his house. The gentleman's name is Mark, and they went into Mark's apartment to check on him, and they found Mark dead with empty bottles everywhere in his apartment. He had become so addicted, it killed him. And that one, I remember when I got the phone call, I cried. And she's like, why are you crying? And I said, I didn't say it out loud, but I said, I'm really sad. But in my mind, I thought, that could be me. That could be me. And I live alone. My kids are all grown. Well, my youngest is 21, but he's out. They're grown. So I'm an empty nester except for cats. So if something were to happen to me, nobody's here. Nobody would have known. So that was, I think, the aha moment of, what are you doing? What are you doing with your life? You are allowing alcohol to be in control. And this is not who you signed up to be. This is not who I wanted to be. This is not when I was little Jackie didn't want to be in her early 50s addicted to alcohol. That's not who I wanted to be.
Before we get diving into how you turned your life around, I really also want to dive into, how did your drinking affect your family life? Did your relationship with your kids change within the period of you drinking to when you decided that that's not how you wanted to live anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I know I made some really stupid mistakes when I was drinking. One of the things that I have recognized from my early childhood is me afraid to speak up. And there's things that have happened with my older sisters that silenced me. And so I would need liquid courage to speak up. And I had an altercation with my oldest son when I was drinking because I allowed alcohol to be in control of that conversation, and it didn't go well. And it has put a rift between our relationship, and it still has. And it's all because I thought I needed alcohol to have that conversation with him. And I've had to apologize to my children of, like, my daughter had come over one time and I hadn't eaten yet. It was like 8:30 at night. I'd been drinking for hours and I finally was going to sit down to eat. And she wanted me to watch something. And I said, no, I can't do that right now. I need to eat. And we got in a huge fight because she wanted me to do something, but she didn't hear me. She didn't want to hear what I had to say. But in reality, I shouldn't have been that drunk at 8:30 at night where I couldn't have put my daughter first. I had to put myself first. And so there's so many things I have done that I've had to apologize to my kids for, and say my one child would want to go and visit friends maybe 20 miles away. And I'd be like, I'll drive you there, but I can't pick you up, because I knew I'd be drunk. I knew I wouldn't want to put myself in that situation to be driving under the influence. So there's things I did that I can't go back and change. I've just apologized to them and said, I'm sorry.
You then hit the point where it was time to have a transformation and you had this awakening moment that you could no longer go on like this. What was your first step into healing? How did you take that brave step and essentially put down the bottle?
I had to get a lot of knowledge. Just putting down the bottle but that's just changing the behavior. And what I learned through my transformation, I found a science-based methodology, and there's a lot that I had to learn about why I was addicted, why I was drinking as much as I was, why my body was reacting the way that it was to alcohol, why I was continually going for it, even though I didn't want it. So as I learned and I went through this, I started on April 1st of 2023. And by June 9th was the day I took my first day one. But during that time, because I was learning so much, there's so many things I was able to do in those first 75, 78 days or whatever it was, that I prepared myself. I had done a seminar online with Matthew McConaughey called The Art of Living, the road, but I can't think what it's called right now. But there were so many things I learned from him, and what I love that he taught me because I was just feeding my brain with as much as I could. And what Matthew McConaughey had said that one of his sessions was on one of the roadblocks was when you make a decision, you either make a renter's decision or an owner's decision. And he said, when you make a renter's decision, it's like you leave the back door open. It's like when you rent an apartment, you have the option to leave because you don't own it. If you hate it, you can leave. But if you make an owner's decision, you shut the back door, you slam it shut, you lock it because you own it. Just like when you buy a house, you own it. So when I made that decision that June 9th was going to be my day one, I'm going to try this. I looked at myself and I said, I'm owning this decision. This is not a maybe. And I remembered, I connected with my my younger self, because when I gave childbirth, I had made a decision that I was going to do it with no drugs. And so I reminded myself of that. When you did that, when you gave birth 4 times, you did it with no drugs because you made a firm decision. That really helped me. But it was so many different things I put into my brain, because if you just drop, like I said, if you just drop the bottle, just drop the alcohol, that's behavior based. And what I focused on was knowledge and emotion and feeling around alcohol. Once I had that in place, then I changed the behavior. So by the time I jumped and I took that day one, I had already gone from averaging about 12 beers. And the day before, I decided, okay, this is my day one. I had 7 beers. So I'd already gone down 45%, which was huge. So I had a lot of confidence in me, but there was a lot I had to learn, because it was rewiring the thoughts and beliefs I had around alcohol, and then understanding it. If I would have learned this back in my 20s, I would have never, ever drank the way that I ended up becoming heavily addicted to alcohol.
You managed to start putting this knowledge into you and changing the behavior. What I get curious about is, how did you stay consistent? That seems to be everybody's hiccup. It's great to start yourself and say you have a day one, but how did you get yourself to day 20, to day 30 and further?
Every day. Every day I kept filling my brain with more and more information. Every day I focused on where I wanted to be there, not where I was coming from. Don't look behind me. Let's look where I want to go. So I just kept feeding myself more information. I also, like, I did make the change of, because I was so used to drinking beer, I did switch to non-alcoholic beer. And so I had the Heineken Zeros, and I did that just because it's a dopamine hit. So what happens is your brain doesn't realize, the brain doesn't know that alcohol is bad for you. It doesn't realize it's a toxic chemical that goes in. It's got, what it's doing to your body. But what it does know is, like, when you go to grab your koozie, when I would go to grab my koozie, I'd already get a synthetic dopamine hit. My buddy's going, oh, you're going to go get that stuff you like. You're going to get that stuff you like. So you get it. So when my day one, I had Heineken Zero, I used the same koozie. I had the same beer fridge. So I went down. So as I drank the Heineken Zero, my body had no idea. It just knew that I was getting that little fake dopamine hit. So what I did too is I just kept myself really busy, because I had to change my routine. My pattern was drinking from 5 o'clock until, depending upon what time it was, 11 or 12. So I painted this whole kitchen. And the reason I'm in my kitchen, welcome to my kitchen, y'all. I have an office in my house. I have other places I'm at. This is where all of my healing happened. Everything was at this table in this kitchen. So I love to be in here because I did it all here. This is where it was bad, and this is where it became great. So it's like I did all these different things to make sure that I just set myself up. I made different teas as well. I'm like, okay, let me have I made a raspberry ginger tea that I had in the fridge, just certain things to fill my time. So because of the fact of, okay, I'm used to doing X, Y, and Z, I'm going to have to change it to A, B, and C. So it's every day. So in the beginning, yeah, it was, still have an old calendar up there. I still do the regular calendar up on the side of my cabinet. But what I did every day, I would take a little Sharpie, and every day I didn't drink, I put a pink heart every day. So I watched my progression. And so that was giving me confidence too, because you're reinforcing. And that's the thing we have to do, is you have to reinforce the behavior and the habit that you're changing, was reinforcing it and celebrating every day. Even though I'm not going to lie to you guys. When you drop alcohol out of your body, when you say, okay, this is it, enough is enough. My body had a lot of healing it had to do. The headaches were horrible. I would get tired, and I would just let my body tell me what I needed to do. But I will tell you now, I'm 2 years and I don't know, 2 years and a month and a half, whatever that comes out to. So I'm like 25 and a half months of alcohol free. And I would do it all over again. I would go through all of that to be where I am today, because I had no idea on June 9th, 2023. I had no idea where I was going to be. All I knew was this, and I learned this from Dean Graziosi. You just make 1 millimeter shift a day. That's it. Just 1 millimeter shift. And I'm like, I remember thinking, oh my God, is it really going to happen? And I'm living proof that a little tiny millimeter shift every day has happened. And I pulled all the weeds in my garden and I let my garden grow. And I nourished this brain that I have and my body to be able to say, yeah, I beat it. I beat alcohol and I've done it. And now I'm so thrilled at where my life is because it's completely transformed.
Did you go through the standard AA programs or anything like that?
No, I was not. No, here's the reason why. I mean, for some people, AA works. The biggest reason why I was never going to walk into a room and call myself an alcoholic because that word is completely disempowering. It makes you think that you have a problem. And that word was, in my humble opinion, was created by the alcohol industry because what they do is they blame the person instead of the substance. Because you didn't call me a cigarette-aholic. You said I was addicted to cigarettes or nicotine. You don't call somebody a heroin-aholic. You say they're addicted to heroin. So that, to me, that word makes you feel, it made me feel like a failure. And I was never going to call myself that. Rehab, was never going to go to rehab because I had learned, I'd seen friends of mine who had gone. And from what I have now learned through my studies too, only 4 to 5% of people who go to rehab actually find freedom from alcohol. AA has about a 10% success rate. So the methodology that I used has about a 90% success rate. 54% quit drinking, and then 36% had dramatically changed their relationship with alcohol to the point that they moderate. They might have 1 or 2 drinks a month or whatever it might be. So no, I didn't go that route because one of the things that I remember watching a show called Loudermilk, and it's all about AA. And he was 4 years alcohol free, and his best friend married his ex-wife. And on the day he saw his ex-wife getting married to his best friend, he went into a bar and he had a shot. And he went out in the alleyway and he threw up because he just drank, he did a shot of whiskey or whatever. He took his chip and he threw it in the trash. 4 years. He felt like he failed. And we don't do that. I tell people let me find out why. What's the data? Why did you do that? Of course you ran to that for that moment, but it doesn't mean that you go back to day one. So I have a totally different approach. So that's why, that's a long-winded answer to your question.
It sums it up great. Just like my return project here, I was born out of a philosophy that we're not starting from scratch. It's not the fact that if life kicked you sideways and threw you off course, that you just throw it all away and it's starting over. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't something that was your fault. Life happens to us. The purpose to us is let's return to where we wanted to be. Let's return to the person we're supposed to be, our heart, our soul, and not have to think we're starting again and starting from nothing. We are starting from experience. We're starting from a place of knowledge now. We are returning to a space where, okay, this happened and we're returning. So I feel like what you were going on there is that with AA, when they threw away the coin, he thought he had failed and he had to start again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would love to know, did any of your beliefs, your self-value, how did your mindsets shift from a world of drinking to going through your transition and saying no more? How did your mind change?
A lot of hard work. A lot of hard work. I had my own one-on-one coach that I did a lot of work with her. I reconnected with parts of me that I had forgotten were there. So as an example, I had lost my confidence in myself. So I ended up doing some work around that where I have this whole, it's called an emotional mastery triad. I do this with my clients now where I went back to a time when I was confident, and that's when I was a field hockey player. Nobody could scare me on that field hockey field. You had a stick in your hand, it didn't bother me. I was coming after that ball. So I remembered that you have that fighting spirit inside of you. So it was just a lot of peeling back the layers. So some of you guys don't know, I am a certified alcohol freedom coach and transformation coach now. And one of the things I wanted to learn from a gentleman named Shirzad Shameen, and he has a thing called positive intelligence. And what I love that Shirzad taught us was inside of who we are is truly our golden essence. And what happened was there's so many people threw layers and layers and layers on us because when we were young, it's not like I connected with my younger self. I went back to who I the core of who I am. So it's like, who was the little Jacki? So I had a picture when I was 3 years old, and I looked at it, and he said, look at that picture of yourself. And I saw the smile. I saw the energy that I was. But what happens in life to all of us, people throw their goo on us, their opinions on us. So I have had to work very hard to pull off and say, no, 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 just because your sister told you that. So I've had to rewire a lot of these beliefs I had about myself, or about, especially about alcohol as well, but really about myself, of these certain things that I allowed the opinions and beliefs of others to influence who I was. So it's been wonderful to recognize that I don't have to carry their beliefs. I'm allowed to be my own person.
Let's jump forward here to hypothetically, you have someone that comes to you and they're struggling with alcoholism. What's one of the first steps or the first bits of advice that you're going to get someone started with?
First thing we're going to go through is I'm going to ask them what kind of life it is they really want to live. And I take them through a series of questions, and I really I take them from their head to their heart. And I really start working on their emotions and their feelings. And I start to paint a picture of what is it you want your life to look like. I also will ask them questions about, why do you think you need alcohol? And why are you afraid to not drink? Because there was those are some of the things that I did in the beginning. And I'll be honest, in the beginning, when I did, it's two worlds. You look at them. It's the two big lists. And I was like, I'm afraid I won't fit in. People will think I'm crazy. People will judge me. I won't be able to sleep. All these things that I thought were real. And so I was able to debunk a lot of those myths. So I just really I give them hope. One of the things that I do with my clients, I hope, relationship, and tactics. I really relate to them because I get it. I have a gentleman I'm working with right now, and he was supposed to go to alcohol counseling. And he told someone, he said, I'm not going to go to just any counselor. I'm going to Jacki Fleniken. I'm going to this woman right here. And they're like, why? Like, you need to go to this counselor, because the counselor had never smoked weed, had never rolled a joint, and had never drank. So how can somebody like that truly have compassion and understanding for somebody who has an addiction problem? So I get it, and I understand, and I hold people in a very safe space to let them tell me their story, and then I help them maneuver life the way they want, not on my terms. I get them to find out the life they want on their terms.
Let's talk deep here for a second. And has there been a point in your journey, even up to now, where we all recognize life, it gets hard, stuff happens, that you've turned and had a thought, maybe I should pick up a drink again?
I'll be honest with you, I have had some stuff take me to my knees in the past 6 months to a year. I mean, some stuff that and I'm going to be honest with you guys, if that thought came in, it went out so fast, because I have done so much work on me. Because one of my non-negotiables was, what is it I don't ever want to feel that hangover again. So I've been able to work. If it comes in, it fleets, it goes. Because I have done so much work on when those things come in, I know the breathing exercises I do. I go to my vagus nerve. I know how to self-regulate myself now, where I don't need to run to alcohol to numb. And I teach my clients that, because it's like we were so programmed to run to it. So I haven't really had a lot of thoughts. I think the biggest one I had, probably 6 months alcohol free. I was like, man, I remember sitting here. I was like, after I would have all my beer, sometimes I'd like to have Fireball at the end of the night with a little bit of soda water or whatever. Some little bit of Fireball cinnamon whiskey. And I remember I was like, man, I think I want some Fireball. And I went, no, you don't. Get yourself a Fireball candy. What are you talking about? No, you don't want that anymore. And I went, oh, that's right. That's right. So the biggest thing is you catch it. And that's why I teach my clients. If that thought comes in, it's okay. It's what you do with the second thought that matters. If you act on it, I know, right? The second thought. My third child, 22 years old, love my child so much, lives in Colorado, has gone through a lot of work through the years, and learned that from Carter a couple months ago. That's what he said to me. Mom, it's not the first thought that matters, it's the second one. And I said, I'm stealing that. That is power right there. That's power.
I got told it in a bit of a slightly different way a few years ago, that what separates us from an animal reacts on their first instinct, on their first thought. As humans, we have the ability to have that animal instinct, but then have a secondary thought.
Absolutely.
If you could go back to a younger you and look at your high school self even, what's one of the greatest pieces of advice that you would tell your younger self?
Don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to speak up. I get teary-eyed when I think about it, because that's been a lot of my healing process, of understanding why I would silence myself, and understanding, because it was crazy when I'm divorced. And I remember my ex-husband saying to me, I was having a situation with my father, and he said, drink a couple beers and then email your dad. Because he knew I would felt handcuffed, silenced like this. I would tell that Jacki of don't be afraid to speak up. You've got a voice. You need to use it. And I'm learning. Yeah.
So also looking forward now, what is going forward look like for you? What is next? How are you evolving and continuing to grow? And what next big things do you see for yourself?
I'm constantly learning. I love now really understanding the brain and how the brain works and the way that we've wired it different ways. So I listen to a lot of different podcasts and things like that. Evolving and growing and continually trying to help people is really my passion now, because I know that there's a lot of people suffering in silence, and they feel like they're ashamed because because society likes to use that word alcoholic. They're afraid to admit they might have a problem because they don't want to be in that label. And I get that. I don't label that. I don't say that. I just say, what relationship would you like to have with alcohol? So I started a page with a dear friend of mine who lives in California, and we are both went through the same coaching certification together. And we started a page called Sober Guides to Freedom on Facebook, because we want to be able to give back. We want people to know that there's a safe space, a private page where you can come and get advice. You can come and get suggestions. You can come and feel safe, because so many people, like I said, are suffering in silence and they need a space to go to. So my goal is just to be able to help as many people as I can. Gosh, down the road, would I love to be in front of a large group of people? Absolutely. Be able to speak and just really empower women and men, really middle-aged women like myself, empower them to say, you can change. Just because you are where you are now, you can change. And I know I've got a lot of friends who still, like, they're so proud of me, but I still think they go, where'd that drinking Jacki go? I have more fun now than I did when I was drinking. And I mean, I really have, and I don't care. I just get out. My boy met a man I'm dating a wonderful man that I met on my birthday in October of last year. And we'll go places and dance, and we just dance and have a great time with our water or our non-alcoholic beer. And I'm living my raw, true, authentic self, who I let go so long ago, and now she's back. So it's like, watch out.
That seems like a great place to bring our conversation full circle. And at the end of every one of my podcasts, I like to pose a really deep, powerful question. The question I throw out to everybody is, what is your true definition of truly living your best life?
I wake up every day and I'm grateful. And I look at how far I have come from the deep, dark hole that I was in. And when I can look at where my life has come now, and I think to myself, if I can slay the alcohol monster and the cigarettes, what else can I do? And so it's like I live life now fully present, and I'm able to have so much clarity about anything that I'm going through. Even if it's tough, I can sit with it and I can analyze it better, and I can make the choices that are best for me and my family and those that I love around me. And that to me is pure beauty, because I get to have all the memories, because there's so many memories I don't have. And so that's how I'm living my best life. And it's just going to get better and better and better. And that's what I love about it.
Beautiful, and it will just keep getting better and better. So Jacki, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and talk with us and share your powerful story. I know that there's going to be somebody out there that hears this story and resonates with it in a drastic way. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on today's episode. A heartfelt thank you to our guests for showing up with honesty, depth, and wisdom. And thank you for listening in. I hope something in this conversation stirred something in you, a memory, a reminder, or maybe even a return to a part of yourself that's been waiting. If you enjoyed this episode, can I ask a quick 30-second favor? Share it with someone you know, someone who might need to hear this message too. And don't forget to explore past episodes. There's so much more waiting for you there. Until next time, I'm your host, Bryan White, and this is The Return Project.